Guys, I'm so emotional today because last night was Fetcher Powell's final FOMC meeting. It was the final time that I would stream Fetcher Powell saying the words, "Good afternoon." And it felt absolutely heartbreaking because, contrary to popular belief, I think Fetcher Powell was an incredible Fed chair. The guy faced the pandemic. The guy faced Russia, Ukraine. The guy faced Trump tariffs. The guy faced geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. And I think, given the context of all of those external factors, which was completely outside of the control of the Fed, he did a great job, and he was so close to bringing inflation down to that 2% level. And every time he got there, like he was just inches off, particularly in the past 2 years, you had tariffs, then you had geopolitical tensions. So I think he did a great job. He protected Fed independence, and it's very sad to see him go. In this video, we will explore the executive summary of the things that were said and stated that is necessary and relevant for you. During the FOMC meeting, we will do an update on the markets. And yeah, that's going to be pretty much it. So if you end up enjoying this video, please do me a favor and destroy the like button. It's completely free to like the video, and it truly does show your appreciation and support because it helps the YouTube algorithm distribute this content to as many people out there so that they can also receive this information. If you like the general content or the formats, then if you can subscribe, I promise you, you won't regret it. You'll get daily content from myself, and you can even watch the Moon Show live streams, which is where I do additional daily Monday to Friday live streams going into more in-depth about the topics that I cover here and some extra things about altcoins and industry news. That's a 40-minute show I host on the Moon Show channel. All right, let's get started with the executive summary. Legend. So sad to see him go from the Fed. I will split it into 4 different parts. Part 1 will be economic conditions and outlook. Part 2 is going to be monetary policy stance. Part 3 is going to be Fed independence and leadership. That was a big part of his speech and the questions from the press. And finally, it will be the external factors section. This is not an AI summary of the events. These are from notes that I took watching the press conference, streaming the press conference live, and then I fed it into AI to organize my notes. So part 1, he stated that the wage growth and job growth and employment have all simultaneously slowed while inflation is accelerating. And my additional comment to this was obvious signs of potential stagflation being around the corner if crude oil continues to trade at the now $104 regions it is trading at. President Trump mentioned that he's going to be continuing the blockade and that he rejected a proposal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So the higher the prices of crude oil, the higher the prices of inflation that's going to follow along, and that could potentially cause stagflation that would result in the markets dropping. And I think the S&P is going to drop in 2027 anyways. I've shown you the comparison of 1996 to 2001 price fractal multiple times. I think regardless of what happens, like this is about the structure that I think the S&P will end up following. Stagflation. Then unemployment, he stated, was low at 4.3%. So the yellow is good stuff, the red is bad stuff, and the blue is neutral stuff. He said that unemployment is low at 4.3%, near the essentially, like you can consider it to be like a neutral rate. Quits, hires, and job creation are all low, but it cancels each other out. So the only people that are unhappy with the labor market are the individuals that are new graduates and the people that don't have a job already, because it's hard for them to get a job because nobody is leaving. And nobody's hiring. So you need somebody to leave in order for an occupancy to be created. It's balanced, but if you're a fresh graduate, then you are struggling. Consumer spending and data center investment are keeping the economy resilient, even though we're in a state of geopolitical conflict and energy has bounced to crazy levels. Consumer spending has not reduced yet. But if gas prices stay at where they are, which is $4.23 per gallon, highest since the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, then we could start to see a decrease in consumer spending. Logically, you would, because if gas prices are 25% higher, then the household will need to reallocate their budget. They're going to spend more on energy and spend less elsewhere. That would reduce GDP. So far, we've shown resilience, but that may not hold up in the next two data points because it's always a lagging indicator. You don't see the data, the CPI data that's released. Any sort of economic data that is released is not fully contextualized for that present time. It takes many months for January's inflation data to fruitfully be represented. It takes months. It's not instantaneous. I think this is the reason why we've not seen a slowdown in consumer spending, but I personally believe that it will come around. He says that there is high economic uncertainty overall and that inflation is going to be pushed higher as a result of increasing oil prices. So they've established that inflation will go higher because oil prices will be higher. He doesn't know for how long oil prices are going to be higher. Nobody knows. But at least they have the anticipation that this will be a short-term shock and it will go away eventually. But they're not planning on cutting rates until oil has fully corrected and tariff inflations have fully corrected too. So you need to see not just oil peaking, but oil correcting, and then they would consider to cut rates. Until then, this year, there is no expectation of a rate cut. They kept the rates. By the way, I should have began with this. They kept the rates exactly where they were at 3.75%, which is what we predicted based off of the CME Fed Watch data. That never really proves us wrong. The second part was the monetary policy stance. And with regards to monetary policy, no Fed cuts expected this year. They do not see a case for meaningfully restrictive policy. I don't think even if they were to hike, we would go into like the 4.5% and the 5%. I do not see that taking place. I don't think Fed Chair Powell sees that taking place. Currently, they're taking any sort of new monetary policy decision from a meeting by meeting basis. Monetary policy is not operating on a preset course. Whatever data is given to them, they create a decision based off of that. And the interest rate, which the Fed is holding 3.75, is a perfect level for them to sit, observe, and act pragmatically. That is what they stated. The labor market is cooling as expected, while inflation is not. Better to hold policy steady for now. The penultimate point is the Fed independence and leadership, a very important part of Fed Chair Powell's speech last night. He said that he will not remain Fed Chair. AI got it wrong there. He's not going to remain Fed Chair. Kevin Warsh is very, very likely to go ahead and become the next official Fed Chair when Powell's term ends on May the 15th. He went through the Senate Banking Committee, which was the biggest hurdle. They dropped the investigation on Fed Chair Powell, and that's why Kevin Warsh was able to proceed through the Senate Banking Committee. So his term is going to end, but he will remain as governor. Many people on the internet, including President Trump, I think are wrongfully accusing Powell to stay on the Fed, on the FOMC board. Like, if Fed Chair Powell was not to leave his position as Fed Chair and stay on the board, which he wouldn't have done, like the guy was planning on retiring. The only reason why he's staying is because the Fed is under dramatic attacks, the highest amount of legal attacks that the Fed has seen in so many decades. And the independence is really at a point of criticalness where if these legal attacks succeed, then the Fed would lose its independence from politics. It will become politicized. It will become partisan, and the political influence on monetary policy will completely get rid of people's trust in American treasuries and American dollar. If the Fed becomes politicized, every politician, whenever they come in, they're going to favor for lower interest rates. They're going to favor money printing because it will ease the economy within the period of their electoral cycle. President Trump, for his second term in office, is only there for 4 years. So if he was, or anybody else was to reduce rates and do quantitative easing, for those 4 years, economy will go berserk. It will do so well. But after their term finishes, inflation is going to rise and there will be a depression. No politician will really think for the very long term because the main agenda in politics is to get re-elected. That's the whole point. And I think the Fed independence is at true jeopardy. And I think Fed Chair Powell remaining on the board of governors to, even the split between the Democrats governors and the Republican governors is a good idea. I think he's doing a self-sacrifice, and I really do respect for Fed Chair Powell to do that. It's a little bit of a paradox that he's stuck in. Like, do you stay as chair? Do you not stay as chair? Do you stay on the board to preserve independence, thereby eroding independence because you sway the Democrat-Republican slider to a particular way, but also that would mean you preserve it? It's a paradox. I ultimately believe that him staying is the correct decision. And finally, when we look into external factors like oil, Fred, he said that Fed credibility has not been lost. He thinks that long-term inflation expectations are anchored toward 2%, and the markets prove that. The markets are pricing in for the Fed to do their job eventually and bring the interest rate to 2%. So the credibility has not been lost yet, but it would get lost if these legal attacks were to succeed, in my viewpoint. And then when you go into the external factors like energy and tariffs, he thinks that the US are facing far less significant impacts from the ongoing conflict compared to EU and Asia, because America, they produce a bunch of crude oil. They're more self-sufficient compared to Southeast Asian countries where they need to import a lot of their energy. Gas prices are rising and will likely continue to rise. It's hitting airfares. Energy prices have not yet peaked, he said, and rising energy costs will negatively impact GDP eventually. Energy inflation should dissipate over time, we said that, and he thinks that tariff inflation will go away in 2 quarters. That was the executive summary from everything that has been said by Fed Chair Powell, and it looks like Kevin Warsh will come in after his term. Fed Chair Powell's term ends on May the 15th. Kevin Warsh has promised that he will not get politically influenced with his decision making. We will see if that ends up being the case. I mean, the position of Fed Chair, you're not independently deciding what the rates will end up being. You have to convince a board of almost 15 people, talk to them individually, share your ideas, share your viewpoints, try to tell them, okay, let's bring interest rates towards this way. But if the board member doesn't agree with you, they don't have to agree with you. They should work with you if they find you reasonable. But if they don't find your idea reasonable, then they're still going to cast their vote in accordance to what they truly think. So being Fed Chair doesn't mean you have sole control of where the interest rate is going to be. And I think people get that mixed up too. But they have an extra amount of influence compared to just a normal governor, because you talk to all the board members individually and you try to persuade them, so on and so forth. Currently, there's a 94.6% chance they don't cut rates, and I don't think that this is an environment where you should be cutting rates at all when inflation is at 3.3% and subject to grow even more next month, when crude oil is trading at $100, over $100, when food inflation has accelerated to unbelievable territories. You can see particular things like tomatoes are up 102%. Right? Tomatoes are up 102%. If you just zoom into particular things, it's out of control. There's higher fuel costs, more fuel costs, meaning more expensive travel of goods. The Strait of Hormuz being blocked disrupts global supply chain, and those increasing costs to transport are then reflected on the final price that is being sold to the consumer, which is, of course, classified as inflation. So when inflation is at this point, when global uncertainty is at this point, would you reduce rates to help fiscal policy and actually lead to an even bigger disaster? Because if you cut rates, then inflation is going to go bananas and you're not going to be able to control it. No, it would be a terrible decision. So for anybody, really, that thinks that rates should have been cut in yesterday's meeting, leave a message in the comment section and I will send you the phone number of my high school economics tutor. I'm sure in just a 1 hour sit down, they will be able to explain to you why it doesn't make sense at all. Look at this chart between crude oil and CPI. The CPI has begun its upwards momentum, but it hasn't caught up with oil prices. In 2021, 2022, look at the parity. Look at the parity in 2017. CPI follows crude oil almost by 100% correlation. We're going to jump more, and a higher jump will mean more expensive cost of living, and it will mean that the Fed should keep restrictive policy for now. President Trump, when we take a look at geopolitics, President Trump mentioned that he rejected Iran's proposal to reopen the Straits, and there could be potential strikes that are conducted in a close proximity of time. Hopefully not, but that is now in the realm of, unfortunately, possibilities. Since the start of this war, jet fuel is up 70%, sulfur is up 60%, Brent is up 52%, heating oil is up 52%, crude oil is up 48%, and a bunch of things have gone up. The price of Bitcoin is perfectly following midterm year price action. When you look at 2022 price action, when you look at 2018 price action, Bitcoin is doing exactly what it should do. And in this given environment, I would say that Bitcoin is going to drop more from here, sweep the lows of 60K, and find the low by Q4 of the midterm. I see Bitcoin dropping lower. It doesn't mean that I'm not buying Bitcoin at 76, because as a long-term accumulator, I think this price is a fantastic area to purchase. I think it's very fair value. But for leverage trading, I would not go long here. I would wait until Q4 to set some riskier trades on Bitcoin. There is no need for me to rush, just like how there is no need for Powell and the Fed to rush to cut rates. We had a bunch of the biggest market cap companies reporting earnings, and even though they reported higher earnings than expected, these stocks had big drops. Meta fell by 7% despite posting stronger than expected Q1 2026 earning results. I think that's another reason for why the S&P is in a distribution phase and not in an accumulation phase. And unfortunately, to conclude, it doesn't look like the Fed will be cutting aggressively even until the year of 2029. This is subject to change, of course, but you need rate cuts to go and extend all the way until it's at 0% or near 0% to have the altcoin season everybody wants to have. Sure, I think we will have increases in accordance to the Bitcoin 4-year cycles, but if you want to see 1,000% gain on average across altcoins, or 3,000% gain, you need to have rates at 0. And as long as you don't have that, then I don't see altcoin season. And that's not currently expected to happen even until the year of 2029. Eventually, though, this whole system is going to collapse and you're going to enter into hyperinflation in the biggest economy of the world, which is America. And just like Argentina and various other countries, you will see thousands of percent of inflation over a 6-year period. And that hyperinflation will reduce local currency value and it will bring it to the floor. And the only option to preserve wealth easily that individuals will have will be to buy Bitcoin. It will be to buy Bitcoin. If you buy gold, if you buy the markets to hedge yourself, the government can say, no, we want to control the dollar. We want to make sure that it doesn't fall to the floor. So I'm telling you, you're going to have to sell your stocks. You're going to have to sell your gold. Bring your gold to me like they did in the 1900s, but they can't do that with Bitcoin. So people will rush into Bitcoin because they don't have any other choice to preserve wealth. This is the reason why I think there's a huge asymmetric information opportunity to buy right now, because nobody's thinking that way. And I think Bitcoin, for what it is incredibly undervalued. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you on the next update soon. If you're looking for a place to be trading Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, do check out the links in the description to our partners, BTCC, Weeks, Bybit, and get the best bonuses available for the Crypto Kids community using those links. Thank you, and as always, bye-bye.